Peace be with you. I wanted to make another video today in regards to what the Prophet Muhammad and his companions were like. And the reason why I'm making this video is because on many occasions I witnessed people far exceed what the Quran says about them when they are describing these people. And I understand that these were good people, the people that were better than us, people who responded to God under the most difficult of circumstances. But at the same time, they were just people. Even Prophet Muhammad was just a person. And this we have to understand. The error that I see a lot of people make is that they venerate these people to such an extent to the point where they make their achievements so special and so extraordinary that the next argument is that we don't have to be like them in order to be Muslims, in order to be successful with God. The truth is, we have to be exactly like them. We have to be exactly like them because they themselves were just people, and we are just people, and prophets were just people, and the only claim to fame that they have is that they responded to God and they did what God demanded to be done. And that is what is expected of everyone. So they weren't chosen in a sense that they were made magical, right? They had their struggles, they had their fears. Even prophets had that, which I will show from the Quran. None of them were special. All of them were just people that got the message. So, who were the companions of the Prophet? Well, again, they were just people like us. So you can imagine our society, and you will see, among us there are people who are diseased, right? Some of us worship quote unquote idols, not like they did, but there's plenty of idolatry going around. There are atheists, there are people who are fornicators, gamblers, drug users, and so on. And that's exactly what they were like when Prophet Muhammad came with the first message. Their society was just like our own. Now, they didn't have cars, but they had all these vices that destroy societies, and this is what Prophet Muhammad warned them about. He didn't say, oh, let's go invent a car. He said, you know, don't do drugs, respect your parents, don't kill your children. Exactly what you could say to people now, because they are doing it. So the first companions of the Prophet were exactly like us. They were members of their society, and they followed their cultural norms, which include killing children, fornicating, being greedy, all the things that the Quran warns us about. Because if people are not doing that, you don't need somebody to warn them about because they're not doing it. So all of them were sick like us, all of them. So Prophet Muhammad comes to them and he tells them, I have a message from God. And that's akin to somebody now coming to a person that calls themselves a Muslim, but a person who is not obeying God, or what we call a non-practicing Muslim, which is just such a ridiculous notion, but I won't address that here. In any case, he comes to these people and says, I have a message from God, and this message is the Quran, and they hear the message, and now they dedicate their life to trying or striving to, which is an Arabic term is called a jihad, to follow this message, to become these people, to develop themselves into these people, and that is their claim to fame because they are successful and under the worst of circumstances, much harder than we are facing now. So that is their claim to fame, and that is what is expected of us. And they weren't perfect. They had their issues. For example, and there's a verse in the Quran about them in chapter 33, and this is verses 9 through 12, and it says, O you who believe, call to mind the favor of God to you when there came down upon you hosts, meaning armies or militaries. So we sent against them a strong wind and hosts that you did not see, and God is seeing what you do. When they came upon you from above you and from below you, and when the eyes turned dull, and the hearts rose up to the throats, and you began to think diverse thoughts about God. So this is talking about a military conflict, and it's talking about the companions, and God is telling them, okay, you got super scared. You thought you were going to die, and all of a sudden you started to doubt. You were scared. So these people, they got scared, and they started to have doubts about God. So this just gives us an insight into their state, the frame of mind. They were just people. They were just people. And God tested them with fear, which is the greatest test. I don't know, just try to recall being afraid, and that is the greatest test. So God tested them with this, and they responded. Now those who didn't respond, the last verse in this block is, There the believers were tried, and they were shaken with severe shaking. So again, the test of fear is the biggest test, one of the biggest tests. And when the hypocrites and those in whose hearts was a disease began to say, God and his messenger did not promise us, but only to deceive. So those people who lost faith, those people who were not successful, even though they were the companions of the prophet, so they are fighting on his side, but they lost faith under the test of fear, and they said, "Oh man, he was just lying. I don't want to do this anymore." Right? So when it was easier, uh, they believed, but when it got real hard, true fear, you think this is the end, I'm about to die, then they folded and they lost everything. Because we got to remember that God says for the hypocrites is the lowest stage in the flame. So that's a little bit about the companions. So these are just people who, when they receive the message, they are in depths of depravity. So they're basically doing everything that the Prophet Muhammad warns not to do in the Quran. You know, they're disrespectful to their families. They're worshiping idols. They're killing their children. They're gambling. They're fornicating. They're lying. They're dishonest in business. The basic tenements of Islam, right? This is what Prophet Muhammad brought. Stop doing these things. And then, there were oppressors. They were not defending the weak. They were exploiting them. So these are the companions of the Prophet. And this is just not these aren't just the companions of Prophet Muhammad. When the Messiah, Prophet Jesus, came, same thing. He came to the same environment, just like our own environment right now. And all the other prophets before them. When Noah came, people were depraved. When Lot came, people were depraved. When Salih came, people were depraved. And there's not a lot of success stories in regards to the companions. A lot of those stories are stories of failures when everybody just rejects the prophets. There are not a lot of people on the boat with Noah, are there? There are not a lot of people leaving the city with Lot. But the people who we venerate, the people who followed Prophet Jesus and Prophet Muhammad and Prophet, all the other prophets before them, they are the ones that were successful, and their only claim to fame was that they got through every test and they were able to obey God eventually and actually be successful. Now, even the prophets were not immune from this. And I'll show that Prophet Muhammad made mistakes. This is not what you hear in mosques, unfortunately. They venerate these people to such an extent to where they make their achievements seem impossible to achieve for us, and they're not. They were just people. And it's important to understand this, because if you claim, if you're sitting there by yourself and you're thinking, you have all these problems, you have all these struggles, and you're thinking, I'm never going to make this. If everybody else is pretending that they're not struggling, and you're sitting here, you're doubting yourself, thinking that it was easy for everybody, everybody's doing it except you, then you are more likely to quit. So it's very important to be honest, starting from the prophet all the way down to the companions and all the way down to each one of us, for us to understand that, look, all of us are struggling. All of us are struggling to be Muslims. It's very hard, but we have to admit that we're struggling. Otherwise, people who are not as sure of themselves, where they think that, especially young people, because when they look at the older people, they think, okay, these people are doing it, how come I can't do it? But they don't understand that no matter what, you're always struggling. So it's important to admit that, in order for others to hear that, to understand that all of us are struggling, so they don't give up. Now, Prophet Muhammad. So people claim all kinds of things about him, where I want to show what he claimed to be. First of all, he repeatedly told all of us that he was just a man. So in chapter 7, verse 188, he says, I do not control any benefit or harm for my own soul except as God pleases, and had I known the unseen, I would have had much good, and no evil would have touched me. I am nothing but a warner and the giver of good news to people who believe. Nothing but a warner. And he says, I don't control any benefit for myself. He also says in chapter 10, verse 49, I do not control for myself any harm or any benefit except what God pleases. Every nation has a term. When their term comes, they shall not remain behind for an hour, nor can they go before that. So he says, I don't control anything, not even for myself. This is what he tells people. He says, I am only a mortal like you. I'm just a man. Hey guys, I'm just a man. And this is in chapter 18, verse 110. It is revealed to me that your God is one God. Therefore, whoever hopes to meet his Lord, he should do good deeds and not join anyone in the service of his Lord. So he says, I'm just a man. God just revealed to me that there is only one God. And if you want to meet God, if you want to be in a right standing with God, you should do good deeds. And then he explains what they are. Then in chapter 22, verse 49, he says, O people, I am just a plain warner to you. So I'm not here to force you. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to anything. Hey, here's the message. Boom. Do what you please. And this is confirmed in other verses. Then in chapter 46, verse 9, he says, I am not the first of the messengers. I don't know what's going to be done with me, and I don't know what's going to be done with you. I do not follow anything but that which has been revealed to me, and I am nothing but a plain warner. I'm just a warner. I don't know what's going to happen. Right? This is not the message you'll often hear in the mosques. Then in the last one, I'm going to say on this topic, chapter 72, verses 21 to 23. He says, I do not control for you evil or good. Surely no one can protect me against God, nor can I find besides him any place of refuge, only a delivering from God and his messengers, and whoever disobeys God and his messengers, surely he shall have fire of hell to stay therein for a long time. So all of these verses I just read, all of them begin with the word kul, or say. So you know for a fact that he stood in front of his people and said this to them. So he didn't say it once, he said it many times. The Quran is the best hadith, so it doesn't matter who says otherwise. This is what he said. This is what he actually said. So now, to kind of show his humanity. All right, so Prophet Muhammad is a man who actually feels grief, right? There's a verse in the Quran in chapter 6, verse 33. It says, we know indeed that what they say certainly grieves you, but surely they do not call you a liar, but the unjust deny the communications of God. So he's out there telling them, about God and delivering the message, and they're just ridiculing him, calling him a liar, and he feels grief. So now you got to imagine this man is sitting there, and he's like, think about how you would feel if your whole community made fun of you, called you crazy and stuff. Man, that hurts. That hurts. And he is there feeling grief, and then God tells him, I know that you're feeling grief, but they're not calling you a liar. They're calling the Quran a liar. And this is what this is what people need to understand. Everybody feels grief. Everybody can be just devastated by the people they live around, especially even people like prophets. So if you're trying to tell people stuff and they're calling you crazy and they're calling you a liar, they did that to better people than you. So that's just to be expected. And the grief that comes along with that is just to be expected. So even Prophet Muhammad felt grief. Prophet Muhammad also made mistakes. So a lot of times you hear that he was perfect, but he wasn't perfect. He made mistakes. So I'll give a few examples. So the first example is one where he is reprimanded for pardoning some people too quickly, and this is in chapter 9, verses 33 and 34. It says, had it been a near advantage and a short journey, they would certainly have followed you. But the tedious journey was too long for them, and they swear by God, if we had been able to, we would certainly have gone forth with you. They caused their own souls to perish, and God knows that they're liars. God pardon you. Now that God is talking to Prophet Muhammad. Why did you give them leave until those who spoke the truth had become clear to you, and you had known the liars? So he excuses them too early, and God reprimands him. So he made a mistake. In the next example, it talks about peer pressure. So Prophet Muhammad suffered from peer pressure, cancel culture, whatever you want to call it. He also experienced that and had that pressure on him, right? People want something, and if a lot of people want something, they put pressure on whoever to say that is the right thing to do. And this is what we see with degradation of faith. This is what we see. Now you have in Christian churches, you have homosexuals running them. Basically, you have homosexual flags on there, and this is not to say whatever. This is just say they have no place there because the Bible condemns them. Same thing with Muslims. You have mosques full of fornicators. And that's the same thing. It's a fawahish. Homosexuality, fornication is the fawahish. God hates it. In any case, uh, peer pressure is real, and peer pressure is especially dangerous to preachers who, if they say what's in the books, people may hate them. They would have empty pews, or they will not even be able to be preachers because they will be discarded by the organizations. In any case, Prophet Muhammad felt peer pressure as well, and unfortunately, in some cases, he seems to have given into it. So, one example is in chapter 17, verse 73 to 75. And it says, "And surely they had purposed to turn you away from that which we have revealed to you, that you should forge against us other than that, and they would certainly have taken you for a friend." So they wanted him to lie, and they say, okay, if you say this, then we're cool. You're going to be among us. We're going to help you out. You're going to be a part of the community, right? And had it not been that we have already established you, you have certainly been near to incline them a little. So God tells him, if it wasn't that we helped you, you would have given into this. In that case, we would certainly have made you taste a double punishment in this life and double punishment after death. Then you would have not have found any helper against us. So peer pressure. Real, even prophets felt it. So, lesson for us in this is don't give in to peer pressure. The book is what's right. So, if you are a Muslim, the book is what's right. In the next example, we're told the Prophet Muhammad feared people. He feared people. Again, peer pressure, more than he feared God. This is a prophet, and this is how powerful peer pressure is. If a prophet goes through this, then you cannot underestimate the effects of peer pressure, and you always have to try to keep that in mind. Because it's real. It's real and it's very, very strong. And it says, and this is in chapter 33, verse 37. "And when you said to him to whom God has shown favor and to whom you had shown a favor, keep your wife to yourself and be careful of your duty to God. And you concealed in your soul what God will bring to light." So Prophet Muhammad hid inside what God made him show it. It's like he didn't want this to happen, but God says this is going to happen. And when you feared people, and God had a greater right that you should fear him. But when Zaid, which is a prophet's adopted son, had accomplished his want of her, we gave her to you as a wife, so there should be no difficulty for the believers in respect of the wives of their adopted sons when they have accomplished their want of them, and God's command shall be performed. So this is talking about divorce. Prophet Muhammad told him, man, don't divorce her, da. But their custom was one way, the way that their culture was one way, and God changed that culture. God says, this is not how it is, and this is what happened. But Prophet Muhammad didn't want this. He knew that was going to upset a lot of people, and it happened anyway. But that just shows again what peer pressure is. In another example, he feared his wives more than he feared God. He says, God tells him in the Quran, this is in chapter 66, verse 1. "O Prophet, why do you forbid that which God has made lawful for you? You seek to please your wives, and God is forgiving, merciful." So again, peer pressure. A lot of this is peer pressure. And the last example in this video is getting pretty long, is where he focuses on a rich man and ignores somebody that a lot of us would not consider very useful, a poor blind man. So this is in chapter 80, verses 1 through 11. And it says, "He frowned and turned his back, because there came to him a blind man. And what would make you know that he would purify himself, or become reminded, so the reminder should help him? As for him who considered himself free from need, to him do you address yourself. And no blame is on you if he would not purify himself. And as for him who comes to you striving hard, and he fears, from him will you turn away? No, surely it is a warning." So God basically tells him, for the rich man, he don't even want to hear you, and you're really trying. But somebody that came to you with, somebody that was eager to learn from you, you turned away from him because why? Why did you turn away from him? So it's not your fault if the rich man doesn't listen to you, but it is your fault if you turn away from the poor man. So, so that's it. This is already a 20-minute video. Basically, Prophet Muhammad, last thing I'm going to say, that he was told by God, that he's not responsible for people, and neither are we. Okay, and in chapter 13, verse 40, it says, "And we will either let you see the part of what we threatened them with, or cause you to die. For only the delivery of message is upon you, while calling to account is ours." So Prophet Muhammad was told that, he will just deliver the message. His job is to deliver a message. It is not his job to convince people. It is not his job to do anything, only to remind people. Quran is a reminder, and it is a reminder for all of us. And if we want to be Muslims, this is what we should follow. This is what we should study. We should not wrap it up in towel and keep it up as if it's a holy relic, because it's not a relic. Words don't do anything unless you put them to action. There's no magic in it. The magic that it did on people is, such as the companions and the prophets, is that they read the words and they changed their behavior. That's the magic. And that is what God demands. All of us are humans. We live in societies that are lying to us. Propaganda is real. And everyone is selling us something, selling us a way to live. And our cultures are gearing us one way. Our friends are gearing us one way. But God tells us the only way to live, the best way to live. And if you truly, one day, if you truly stop and you listen and you ponder and you consider the outcomes, you will see that this is the only way. There is no other way to live. And it doesn't matter if you're riding a horse or flying in a flying car. It doesn't matter. These concepts are timeless, and these are the only ways that people can be happy and societies can survive. Where all of us are just humans. Remember that. Don't give up the struggle. If you are a Muslim and you're making mistakes, don't give up the struggle. Struggle is real. It was real for all of us, and you just gotta do it. That's it. That's it.